The episode opens with Matt Murdock, Karen Page, and Foggy Nelson leaving their office, reflecting on the grim state of Hell's Kitchen. The police force is shrinking, 30% have retired, and heroes like Daredevil and White Tiger are making cops feel obsolete. Among those stepping away is Cherry, who's celebrating his retirement, though he's far from happy about it. At Cherry's retirement party, the mood sours when Foggy gets a call from Benny, urgently asking for help. He's at Foggy's place, but he's not alone. Sensing danger, Matt changes to Daredevil, and as he leaves Karen and Foggy to go save Benny, he hears Benny say, "I'm sorry, he wanted to know where you are." It was all a setup. Bullseye ambushes them, shooting Foggy and tear-gassing the bar. Before he can take out Karen, Daredevil returns, launching into a brutal fight. Their battle spills onto the rooftop, but as they trade blows, Matt hears it. Foggy's heart stops. His best friend is gone. Overcome with rage and grief, Daredevil hurls Bullseye off the roof. But even that doesn't dull the pain. As he removes his mask to cry, Cherry is there, witnessing his true identity. But Bullseye survives the fall. 1 year later, Daredevil is gone. Matt has retired the suit for good, choosing the legal system over vigilante justice. He testifies against Bullseye in court, ensuring he's sentenced to life without parole. Karen shows up at the courthouse, but barely acknowledges Matt. She's still grieving and furious that he shut down after Foggy's death, ignoring her for weeks. He's tried to make amends, but she won't hear it. With Daredevil out of the picture, crime has skyrocketed. People complain that New York is worse than ever. One night, while making dinner, Matt hears Wilson Fisk on TV, making a desperate public plea. The city is spiraling out of control. Good cops are afraid, and vigilantes have turned New York into a war zone. To fix things, Fisk announces his candidacy for mayor. Matt is rattled. Vanessa has been running Fisk's criminal empire in his absence. She's strengthened alliances, made the business bulletproof, and now that Fisk is back, she expects him to take over. But Fisk has other plans. He wants to stay far away from crime to keep his public image clean. Matt has moved on professionally, opening Murdock and McDuffie with his sharp-witted new partner, Kirsten McDuffie. She sets up a meeting with Dr. Heather Glenn, a potential client needing legal representation. But when Matt arrives at the coffee shop, he realizes it's a setup. Kirsten also told Heather that Matt needs therapy. After some initial awkwardness, they actually have a decent conversation. Later, Matt confronts Kirsten, calling her move unethical. She insists it was time for him to open up. Matt, however, asks for Heather's number just to apologize. Kirsten sees right through him. Cherry brings Matt intel on Fisk's campaign. Half the cops hate Fisk, half love him, and everything about his campaign is squeaky clean. Fisk even calls Vanessa an investment sorceress, though Matt knows it's all just smoke and mirrors. Still, he decides it's not his fight anymore. Then Fisk plays his ace, using the Bullseye bar attack from a year ago to campaign against vigilantes. He paints himself as a victim, turning the city against masked heroes. Matt goes to see Fisk, meeting him at Becky's diner. Fisk denies killing Foggy, but Matt doesn't care. He warns Fisk, "Step out of line, and Daredevil will return." Fisk fires back. If Daredevil resurfaces, Kingpin will bring the full force of the law down on him. It doesn't take long for Fisk to win the election. No build-up, no struggle. Just a landslide victory. People cheer in the streets, but Matt knows the truth. New York just fell into the hands of its most dangerous enemy. The episode ends with Fisk confronting Vanessa, revealing that he knows about Adam. Vanessa makes him promise not to kill Adam. He agrees, saying he's a changed man, which I highly doubt. Matt, on a dinner date with Heather, warns her that Fisk may appear to be a benevolent figure, but underneath, he's a monster. As the tension lingers, Matt and Heather share a kiss. Wilson Fisk takes center stage in New York, delivering a powerful speech about the city's precarious state. He envisions a safer, more controlled metropolis, one free from vigilantes like Spider-Man and the Punisher. His assistant, Sheila, reminds him that his early days in office are crucial for setting the tone, but there's a growing rift between the city's traditional voters and his wife Vanessa, who resists playing the role of a picture-perfect first lady. Sheila advises Fisk to tread carefully in his first 100 days, but he's eager to push forward, even if it means making enemies. That determination is put to the test when traffic halts his car due to an unfinished road repair. Ignoring bureaucratic red tape, Fisk steps out and orders the workers to fill the hole immediately. Bystanders record his decisive action, and soon, chants of support echo through the streets. Meanwhile, at a train station, two men, Powell and Shanahan, rough up a civilian. Hector Ayala, witnessing the scene, steps in to help. In the chaos, Shanahan falls onto the train tracks and dies. Powell then reveals himself as an NYPD officer and arrests Ayala on the spot, though the man they were assaulting escapes. At the police station, Matt Murdock overhears the commotion surrounding Ayala's arrest. The death of a cop has turned Ayala into public enemy number one. After speaking with him, Matt believes Ayala's account of events, but also senses he's hiding something. Taking this case puts a target on Matt's back, and the first hearing goes disastrously. The judge immediately sides with the prosecution, denies Ayala bail, and sets the case for trial. Amidst all this, journalist Bibi Urich, niece of the late Ben Urich, meets with Fisk under the pretense of a light interview to boost his public image. But things take a turn when she starts pressing him with tough questions, revealing her suspicions about the unusually quiet NYPD. She's especially curious about why Police Commissioner Gallo suddenly announced his retirement right after Fisk took office. Is there more going on beneath the surface? If Gallo steps down, it could spark a mass protest from the police. And if the cops turn on Fisk, his reign could be over before it even begins. Fisk tries to meet with Gallo at Shanahan's funeral, but the commissioner is disgusted by him. Calling Fisk a monster and a thug, Gallo makes it clear that he wants nothing to do with him. Later, when Gallo formally submits his resignation, the old Kingpin resurfaces. Fisk blackmails him, threatening his wife and son. Gallo, defeated, concedes but warns Fisk to be careful of what he wishes for. Matt's team investigates Ayala's personal life. Cherry and Kristen visit his wife, who refused to attend his bail hearing. She reveals that Ayala is no longer the man she married. Searching his home, Cherry finds the white tiger cloak and ring, Ayala's hidden secret. While it doesn't prove guilt, it certainly doesn't help his case. It suggests he went out that night looking for trouble. Matt confronts Ayala, who stands firm, insisting that the city needs a hero. But Rikers Island is a dangerous place, and Ayala has become a target as he's covered in bruises. Matt secures a small victory in court, convincing the judge that Ayala's white tiger identity isn't relevant to the case, since he wasn't in costume or using powers during the incident. Heather is at a book signing when she's approached by Fisk's assistant, who requests a signed copy. Later, she cancels dinner plans with Matt for a new client, none other than Wilson and Vanessa Fisk. Vanessa reveals that she thrived while Wilson was gone, but now feels conflicted about his return. They both want to repair their marriage, but their issues run deep. Cherry's investigation into Ayala's case hits dead ends, with the official narrative framing him as an unprovoked cop attacker. The missing victim remains untraceable until Matt follows Powell, the remaining cop from the train station incident. Overhearing a call, Matt learns they've found their missing witness, Nikki Torres. Matt rushes to the address, just as the cops arrive to silence Torres. He forces the kid out through a fire escape and instructs him to meet Cherry. When the police enter, they find only Matt. Powell shoves Matt, revealing a Punisher tattoo on his forearm while demanding Torres's location. Matt takes the beating until one of them pulls a gun on him. That's when the Devil of Hell's Kitchen returns. In a violent burst of rage, Matt fights them off, blood splattering across the apartment. As he stands in the wreckage, battered and breathing hard, he lets out a scream, one of anger and frustration. Matt Murdock visits his client, Hector Ayala, in his holding cell. Hector, who hasn't been fed, reminisces about Loquillo Beach and the Coqui frogs, describing their calls as a magical sound to native Puerto Ricans. Matt reassures Hector that he'll be free to see Loquillo and his family again. At Red Hook Port, a truck hijacking turns deadly when the hijackers execute both the driver and his passenger after one refuses to give up his wallet. At the mayor's residence, Wilson, Fisk, and Vanessa eat breakfast at opposite ends of a long table. Vanessa proposes laundering $200 million through art sales, but Fisk insists on distancing himself from crime. Their discussion is interrupted by Sheila, who informs them about the Red Hook murders. After she leaves, Vanessa warns Fisk that without his leadership, the criminals are turning on each other, and eventually, they'll come for him. Fisk, however, is content to let them destroy themselves while he keeps his hands clean. At the courthouse, Matt washes his bloodied knuckles in the men's room, still recovering from his recent fight with corrupt cops. Officer Powell, one of those cops, enters and challenges Matt, insinuating that he's faking his blindness. Matt stays composed, countering Powell's threats with one of his own. If Powell tries to interfere in the case, Matt will see him behind bars for witness tampering. Powell backs off. Cherry arrives at a warehouse. Inside, Nikki Torres lies on a bed, strung out. Cherry gives him a small bag of drugs to keep him stable, but Nikki complains that it's not enough. Cherry reminds him this isn't for fun, he just needs to be well enough to testify. In court, D.A. Hochberg puts Officer Powell on the stand. Powell falsely claims that Hector Ayala attacked him and his partner, Officer Shanahan, unprovoked, and deliberately threw Shanahan in front of an oncoming train. During cross-examination, Matt presses Powell about whether he and Shanahan were alone before Hector arrived, bringing up the name Nikki Torres. Powell denies knowing him, but Matt hears a whisper in the courtroom. Torres cannot testify. The whisper comes from a cop with a Punisher skull tattoo, just like the one Powell has. Cherry and his partner transport Nikki to court in a van, but Powell pursues them on a motorcycle, forcing them to pull over. He demands they open the back of the van, only to find it empty. Meanwhile, Cherry's partner successfully sneaks Nikki into court via taxi. On the stand, Nikki initially admits to being a confidential informant, but under pressure from the intimidating police presence in the courtroom, he lies and claims he wasn't at the subway platform that night. Frustrated, Matt pushes him, but Nikki sticks to his lie, forcing Matt to withdraw him as a witness. At a clandestine meeting, Buck Fisk's assistant gathers the crime bosses, demanding that Luca pay $1.8 million in restitution to Victor. Apparently, Luca's crew was responsible for the incident at Red Hook Port, which led to the death of Victor's men. Luca, however, refuses to take orders from Fisk's errand boy. Back at Nelson and McDuffie, Matt, Kirsten, and Cherry discuss their dwindling options. With Torres compromised, Matt argues their only play is to put Hector on the stand and hope the jury sees the truth. At couples therapy, Fisk and Vanessa clash over her decision to send Buck to negotiate with the crime bosses. Wilson insists he's staying out of crime, but Vanessa sees it as a punishment for cheating on him, which he denies. In court, Hector takes the stand. He recounts how he was heading to the subway to leave flowers at the studio he had saved up for, a revelation that surprises his wife, Soledad. He testifies that he saw the two officers beating Nikki Torres and intervened. In the scuffle, one of the cops tripped and fell in front of the train. Then, Matt takes a gamble. He pulls out Hector's white tiger mask and asks, "Are you the vigilante known as the White Tiger?" The courtroom erupts in chaos. The judge angrily calls Matt and Hochberg into chambers, chastising Matt for revealing something he previously fought to suppress. Matt argues that his hand was forced after losing Torres. Reluctantly, the judge allows the trial to continue, but warns that the prosecution can now use Hector's past as the White Tiger against him. In his holding cell, Hector confronts Matt, upset that he exposed his secret. Matt warns him that even if he's acquitted, his days as White Tiger are over. Hector disagrees, believing it's his calling. A courtroom montage follows, with witnesses testifying about White Tiger's heroics, including multiple arrests that have been made due to tips from the White Tiger. On the stand, Hector is asked why he risked his life for strangers, and he simply answers, "It was the right thing to do." In closing arguments, Matt urges the jury to consider Hector's history. If he truly was a killer, why would he leave his power-granting ring at home? Hochberg, however, paints a different picture, arguing that even good people are capable of terrible acts. The verdict is read, not guilty on all charges. Hector's family and the defense team celebrate, while the cops in the courtroom exchange ominous glances. At the mayor's office, Fisk watches the news of Hector's acquittal. He orders another interview with B.B. Urich. Later that night, Matt prepares dinner for Heather Glenn. As they drink whiskey, the conversation turns to Foggy Nelson. Matt still struggles to talk about him, but he explains that he and Foggy only drank from this particular bottle when they won a case. Heather toasts to a man who cooks, a well-won case, and Foggy Nelson. In a split-screen sequence, Fisk gives his anti-vigilante interview while Hector, dressed as White Tiger, resumes his nightly patrol. Suddenly, a man steps from the shadows and shoots Hector in the head. His killer's face is hidden, but his chest bears the Punisher skull. Hector Ayala is dead. At the morgue, the coroner seals the belongings of Hector Ayala. Matt Murdock discusses the autopsy findings with the coroner, and is surprised to learn that, despite the extremely close-range shot, no bullet casing was found at the crime scene. Hector's grieving niece, Angela, arrives, desperate to see her uncle's body. Matt convinces her it's a bad idea and leads her away. Near a vending machine, Angela tearfully questions whether the police were responsible for Hector's murder. Frustrated, she wonders if Matt's efforts to free her uncle from jail even mattered in the end. Matt comforts her, assuring her that someone will find the killer. Meanwhile, deep in a subway tunnel, a masked figure carries an unconscious body toward an unknown fate. Reporter B.B. Urich is at a club with Daniel Blake, who complains about needing to head home. B.B. teases him about being overworked by Wilson Fisk, but Daniel defends his boss, calling him an inspiration. He casually mentions that Fisk is taking a meeting with a non-union recycling company. Another friend suggests they get food, but Daniel opts to take a cab to the Staten Island ferry instead. Across the street from the club, a man named Leroy sits handcuffed on the curb, loudly complaining that the cops are eating the caramel corn he allegedly stole. The next morning, Matt is on his rooftop when Kirsten calls, assigning him a pro bono case, defending Leroy. When Matt meets Leroy, the man is instantly rude, griping that he's stuck with the blind dude as his lawyer. He refuses to admit he stole the caramel corn. Despite his attitude, Leroy demands that Matt get him probation. Given Leroy's long rap sheet, Matt doubts that's even possible. When Matt says he'll see what he can do, Leroy jokes that, "See? You can't see shit." Still, Matt works his charm on prosecutor Sofia Ozola, who clearly has a soft spot for him. She starts by offering 35 days in jail, but after some smooth talking, he convinces her to reduce it to just 10. As Matt leaves, he runs into Officer Powell and openly suggests Powell was the one who killed Hector Ayala. Powell, furious, shoves Matt against a wall, denying any involvement. He claims his family has worn the badge with honor for generations. Matt listens carefully. His heightened senses confirm Powell is telling the truth, but the two men still exchange tense words before parting. In Heather Glenn's office, Dr. Glenn presses Wilson Fisk and Vanessa about her affair with Adam. Wilson resists discussing it, but Vanessa explains that after Wilson left, she had no idea if he would return. She was drawn to Adam's artistic hands and the fact that he wasn't part of Wilson's world. When Dr. Glenn asks what world that is, Wilson and Vanessa answer in unison, business. Wilson admits to confronting Adam and expressing how much Vanessa meant to him, but both he and Vanessa deny knowing Adam's current whereabouts. Before they leave, Dr. Glenn asks Vanessa if she feels safe in her marriage. Vanessa assures her that of all the things Wilson is capable of, hurting her is not one of them. At Red Hook Port, Fisk unveils an ambitious revitalization plan to renovate Red Hook Port. As usual, Daniel supports the idea, but Fisk's campaign manager, Sheila, warns that it's not as simple as making declarations. There's a bureaucratic process. Fisk orders her to start it immediately. Afterward, his enforcer, Buck, warns that Red Hook's crime bosses will continue to resist until one of them is sentenced, or until they're all dead. Later, Fisk endures an elementary school's painful rendition of "We Built This City," while Daniel, unknowingly causing trouble, shows Sheila a news story from BB Urich about Fisk's plans to meet with a non-union recycling company. Outside the Latvian Cultural Center, Fisk lashes out at Sheila, demanding an all-hands meeting to find the mole. Back at City Hall, Fisk rages at his staff. Before the accusations spiral, Daniel confesses. He says he overshared and apologizes profusely, swearing undying loyalty if he's fired or not. Impressed, Fisk spares him, but warns that if it happens again, he'll kill him. Matt delivers the plea deal to Leroy, who seems ungrateful at first. But after a heated argument, Leroy reveals why he's so upset. The last time he was jailed, he lost his SSI benefits for missing an appointment. Now he's homeless and struggling to survive. He stole the caramel corn because, for once, he wanted something that tasted good. That night, Matt returns to the scene of Hector Ayala's murder. As a scooter passes by, it kicks a bottle cap across the pavement, giving Matt an idea. He deliberately knocks over a tiny liquor bottle, tracking where it rolls. Following its path to a sewer opening, he finally finds the missing shell. Matt tracks down Frank Castle, but before he can say anything, Frank charges at him with a hatchet and slams him into some lockers. Recognizing him at the last second, Frank backs off and buries his weapon in a cardboard box. Matt shows him the shell casing, which has a Punisher skull logo on it. Frank immediately dismisses it, saying it's from a bunch of Bulls T fanboys, mostly cops. It turns out, some police officers have co-opted the Punisher symbol as their own twisted badge of real justice, idolizing Frank without understanding him. But Frank's not proud of it. He wants no part in their glorification of his violent past. Matt urges Frank to help, to do something. But Frank isn't interested in Matt's idea of heroism. The conversation turns personal. Frank can see the guilt weighing on Matt, especially over Foggy Nelson's death. But Matt refuses to talk about it. Frank presses further. Do you hear his voice? Matt's tears say everything. Frank quietly admits he still hears his own son's voice too. At home, Vanessa and Wilson share drinks when Vanessa brings up Dr. Glenn's question. Should she feel safe? Wilson admits that everything he knows, he learned from his father, who never forgave anyone. But he insists he's trying to change. At Matt's apartment, Heather Glenn is waiting for him. She was worried. Matt vents about how his cases aren't going well. Hector's death, Leroy struggles. Heather reassures him, lifting his spirits. As night falls over the city, Matt finds himself back on his rooftop, stepping into a hidden room where his Daredevil gear waits. He doesn't put on the suit, but he starts practicing with his batons. Elsewhere, in a secret location, Wilson sits down to an uncharacteristically large meal. In the background, Adam, the man Vanessa had an affair with, is locked in a cage, bloodied and begging for freedom. And deep in the subway tunnels, the masked man from earlier looms over his latest victim. Other bodies hang from the ceiling as he plunges a needle into the man's thigh. The victim screams in agony, while the masked figure breathes heavily. It's St. Patrick's Day in New York City, and Matt Murdock finds himself at New York Mutual Bank, waiting for a loan meeting with the bank manager Stephen Aldrich. Instead of Aldrich, Matt is greeted by assistant manager Yusuf Khan, father of Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, who explains that Aldrich isn't in today. Yusuf casually mentions his daughter is on vacation in California, and even shows off his custom Funko Pop of her. But the mood shifts when Matt gets the bad news. His law firm, burdened by too many pro bono cases, is too overleveraged for a loan. Though he turns Matt down, he does so with kindness, making it clear that he wishes he could help. Just as he leaves, an armed Irish gang storms the bank, their ski masks color-coded like a deadly rainbow. Yusuf hides in his office and desperately tries to call the police, but the lines are jammed. Outside, Matt is on the phone with Kristen, telling her about the loan rejection when his super hearing picks up the robbery. He immediately tells her to call 911 and heads back inside. Back inside, the gang's green-masked leader, Devlin, demands to see the bank manager. Growing frustrated, Devlin threatens the hostages until a woman in the crowd confirms that the manager doesn't seem to be around. Devlin then turns to Yusuf, asking for his name and role. When Yusuf says he's the assistant manager, Devlin orders him to open the bank vault. But there's a problem. Yusuf doesn't actually know how. He discreetly asks Matt whether he should admit the truth, but Matt advises him stall for as long as possible. Outside, Detective Angie Kim arrives to handle negotiations. With most of the NYPD already out drinking for St. Patrick's Day, she finds herself playing verbal chess with Devlin. In true Irish spirit, she even suggests they ditch the robbery and grab a Guinness instead. Amused but unfazed, Devlin demands 3 armored AVPs for his crew's getaway and threatens to start executing hostages if he doesn't get them. As a gesture of good faith, Devlin agrees to release 2 hostages. He randomly picks a woman in Matt, but she refuses to leave without her newlywed husband. Seeing this, Matt offers for the husband to take his place, asking if Devlin is letting him go because he's blind. Devlin, unimpressed, makes it clear. He's not being generous. He just wants Matt gone because he looks like trouble. However, after some back and forth, he ultimately lets both the woman and her husband go, while keeping Matt inside. Devlin sends one of his men, the blue-masked robber, to take Yusuf to the vault, while Matt claims he needs to use the restroom, and another thug escorts him downstairs. As he's being led down the stairs, Matt seizes the moment, taking down his captor in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. At the vault, Yusuf nervously spouts historical facts to stall, making for an oddly comedic moment as he babbles about bank architecture. But the blue-masked robber quickly realizes Yusuf is bluffing. Just as things turn violent, Matt appears and takes the guy out. Devlin radios for a status update, and in a stroke of genius, Matt mimics an Irish accent, pretending to be the blue-masked robber and convincing Devlin everything is fine. Now, Matt and Yusuf need to open the vault. They can't go back up empty-handed. Yusuf warns that it has millions of possible combinations and isn't something that can be cracked like a piggy bank. But Matt, using his enhanced hearing, listens to the internal gears and carefully turns the lock. Click. The vault opens. Yusuf, stunned, asks, "What kind of lawyer are you?" Matt smirks. "A really good one." Inside, they find thousands of safety deposit boxes. Each requires 2 keys, one from the bank, the other from the owner. Matt searches the unconscious robber's jacket and finds a key. Though most of its numbers are scratched off, they see a 4. Yusuf frantically tests it on different boxes containing 4 until, finally, they find the right one. Inside is a single diamond, far too valuable for low-level thugs. That's when Yusuf realizes this isn't just a simple bank heist. These guys are working for someone much bigger. Upstairs, Detective Kim bargains for more time, an hour plus, but Devlin isn't feeling generous. He challenges her to make him laugh. If she can, he'll give her more time. She tells a wildly tasteless joke, and to everyone's surprise, Devlin actually laughs, then tells her she has 10 minutes before he starts shooting hostages. Matt hears the hostages upstairs whimpering, and also picks up the SWAT team preparing to breach. He knows that if they storm in now, innocent people will die. He and Yusuf return to the main floor, where Matt warns Devlin of the incoming cops and offers him the diamond as a trade. The moment Devlin catches it, SWAT bursts in with tear gas, sending the bank into complete chaos. In the confusion, Devlin slips away, changing into a police uniform to blend in. Before escaping, he hands the diamond to the woman who earlier said the manager wasn't around, instructing her to give it to Luca. Now, it's clear, this isn't just a bank robbery. Devlin is working for one of New York's infamous 5 families, but Matt isn't letting him go. Tracking Devlin's distinct footsteps, Matt follows him outside, donning one of the gang's red ski masks. In the street, the 2 men clash in a brutal, alleyway brawl. Devlin fights hard, but he's no match for Matt's fury. Meanwhile, Devlin's accomplice, the woman, opens her bag, expecting the diamond. Instead, she finds a piece of candy. The next day, Matt returns to the bank, and Yusuf jokes, "You're not here about that loan again, are you?" "Because it's still a no," Matt chuckles, saying he just came to check on him. Yusuf reveals that, oddly enough, the stolen diamond never turned up. He then invites Matt to dinner in Jersey City to discuss ways to help his struggling law firm. Matt happily accepts. As he leaves, Matt casually grabs a piece of candy from the bowl on Yusuf's desk. But moments later, Yusuf notices something strange. The real diamond is sitting among the sweets. Near the grimy docks of New York, a sanitation worker stumbles upon a chilling scene, a young man's body with his eyes gouged out, while the other sanitation team clean up Muse's murals. Matt Murdock sits in his apartment, praying, while holding Foggy's funeral card. He's haunted by the recent losses in his life, Foggy and Hector Ayala, and though he promised to hang up the Daredevil suit, part of him misses it. Heather Glenn is surprised to see Matt still prays. He admits he's walked away from his faith before, but always finds his way back. Heather's writing a book about the psychology of vigilantes and wants Matt to introduce her to the Punisher or Daredevil, since he's acquainted with them. Matt dodges the topic and says they'll talk about it later. Wilson Fisk gets an unwelcome visitor, Luca, who is furious that he has to pay $1.8 million to Victor. When Luca gets mouthy, Fisk jacks the number up to $2.8 million. $1.8 million to Victor, $1 million to him. Luca storms off, telling Fisk he's out of the game and can't tell him what to do. Things get worse when a city sanitation worker brings Fisk a disturbing update. The mysterious murals left by Muse are made with human blood. At least 60 different DNA profiles are involved. But Fisk wants it covered up. A serial killer on the loose makes his administration look weak. Matt gets a visit from Angela Ayala, Hector's niece. She believes her uncle was killed while investigating a string of disappearances tied to the abandoned Q line. Matt tries to stay out of it, saying he's just a lawyer. What does she expect him to do? But Angela fires back. How about literally anything? And leaves, disappointed. Muse strikes again. This time, two women fangirling over his art become his next victims. He gouges their eyes out and leaves their bodies on display for the cops. Later, Fisk tells Vanessa that Luca came to his office and disrespected him, so he increased his debt. Vanessa says Victor would love that as long as Luca pays up, but Fisk replies that he wants Victor to want it badly. It sounds like Fisk is trying to push Victor to the edge, maybe even motivate him to take out Luca. At a high society fundraising gala, Fisk tries to win over the old money elite to support his redevelopment plans. But one of them calls him out, pointing out that he's already made a fortune from the very ports he now wants to redevelop, likely to benefit himself and his mob-affiliated partners, all funded by taxpayers. Jack Duquesne also throws in a veiled threat, reminding Fisk that without the elite's backing, he's nothing. The night only feeds the rage brewing inside the so-called mayor. Matt's PI friend Cherry shows up to tell him there's a serial killer operating in the city. The news isn't public yet, but it's bad. Up to 60 victims. He begs him not to get involved and let the cops handle it. But Matt can't sit idly by while innocent people are dying. Daniel Blake discreetly shows Fisk the bodies of Muse's latest victims, the two ladies, left beneath another grotesque mural. Muse is flaunting his work. Gallo demands more cops on the street to help find Muse. But instead of hiring more good officers, Fisk handpicks a squad of violent, corrupt officers, men with discipline issues, those willing to cross the line, for his new task force. Fisk personally takes charge of them, declaring they're the founding members of his anti-vigilante unit. This city is yours, he tells them, giving them license to operate above the law. Angela, investigating on her own, unknowingly walks right into Muse's lair at the abandoned train tracks. At the same time, Matt is at home researching the area and gets a call from Angela's aunt. Angela's missing. Matt dials 911, then changes his mind. He hangs up and mutters, "Fuck it." The Daredevil suit comes out of hiding, and he heads to the train tracks where Angela went missing. But Angela's already been captured. Muse takes her unconscious body to his underground lair, where the bodies of his previous victims hang from the ceiling like meat. He lays Angela out and begins to slowly drain her blood. Not long after, Muse hears something approaching, and we see Daredevil come out of the shadows and goes bam in his face. The fight is intense. Muse is surprisingly skilled in combat, enough to match Daredevil blow for blow. Matt's rusty, but he still has the edge. As Angela bleeds out, Matt manages to choke Muse unconscious. While Matt performs CPR and revives Angela, Muse slips away. Across town, Fisk goes to the basement, where he's been keeping Adam, Vanessa's lover, chained up. He comes down with an axe and tells Adam he wants to let him go, believes Vanessa might even want that, but he doesn't think he can. He tosses Adam the axe, giving him a fighting chance. Adam attacks, but it's useless. Fisk, in full Kingpin rage, overpowers him. He slams Adam around the room, all while screaming, "Mine!" in front of his favorite painting, Rabbit in a Snowstorm, a clear reference to Vanessa. He's not just jealous. He's completely unhinged. The city churns in chaos, and Mayor Fisk stands at his window, watching it all unfold. The bloodied murals, left behind by the elusive serial killer Muse, have rattled New York's foundations. But what rattles Fisk even more? The whispers that Daredevil is back on the streets, having just saved Angela from Muse's twisted grip. Buck tries to reason with him. Could Daredevil's return really be such a bad thing? But Fisk snaps. The mere thought of Daredevil operating under his nose again is intolerable. Fisk launches into a tirade, furious over the vigilante's violent, unchecked methods, and haunted by the way Matt Murdock dismantled his empire years ago. But this time, Fisk declares, it's different. He's the mayor now. With control over law enforcement and institutional power, Daredevil won't get the upper hand again. Still, Buck warns him. Using all that power to settle old scores? That could look a lot like abuse of power. Fisk ignores him, seething with quiet fury. Vanessa meets with Luca to discuss the current state of New York's criminal underworld and his very large, unpaid debts. Luca waxes nostalgic. Things were better when you were running them, he tells her, hinting at Vanessa taking over. Matt Murdock tries to rinse off the night in the shower with Dr. Heather Glenn. She notices the fresh bruises on his back. While he tries to distract her with intimacy, she's clearly not fooled. Later, she confronts Matt, who brushes it off, claiming he tripped. Heather brings up how he wasn't home when she arrived. Matt says he went out for a case, but she points out his briefcase was still there. She sees right through the lies and asks gently, is this some kind of self-harm? Her therapist instincts are sharp, and she can tell something deeper is going on. Matt finally opens up. He confesses that his current life, fancy law job, beautiful doctor girlfriend, peace and productivity, feels fake. Heather fears he's spiraling and urges him to fight, not just for clarity, but for her. In a tender moment, they reaffirm their bond by exchanging, I love you. Later, Matt approaches Cherry for help tracking Muse. But Cherry, frustrated by Matt's choice to suit up again, refuses to get involved. At the hospital, Angela awakens and recalls that Muse wouldn't shut up, rambling about his art and upcoming masterpieces. In a split-screen sequence, things come together. Detective Angie debriefs Fisk. Muse is Bastian Cooper, a wealthy young man with a disturbing past, multiple stints in psychiatric facilities, a background in Taekwondo, and a traumatic family history. Simultaneously, Dr. Glenn sits in session with a strange patient who eerily mirrors Bastian's background. Then it happens. The patient's nose bleeds. Dr. Glenn hands him tissues, but instead of wiping it away, he uses his blood to draw Muse's mask. That's when Heather realizes it's him. Her patient is Muse. He tells her she's the key to everything. Then, chillingly, he whispers, you think you can get to the door in time? Heather bolts, but Muse grabs her and smashes her against the wall. Matt sneaks into Muse's lair and searches his sketches. If he could see, he would have recognized Heather instantly. But by feeling one with her face, he realizes she's in danger, just as Officer Powell interrupts, but he knocks him out cold with a billy club. Heather awakens, tied up. Muse carves into her arm, collecting her blood for his art. At the same time, Powell contacts Fisk and informs him that Muse's next victim might be Dr. Glenn. Powell wants to put out an APB, but Fisk shuts it down. Handle it. That's what the task force is for. Muse lays out a cloth to paint with Heather's blood. But when Heather hears the sound of cops approaching, she changes her strategy. She calls Muse a coward, trying to stall for time. Enraged, he tosses her onto the canvas and strangles her. Then, Daredevil bursts in. What follows is a brutal showdown. Daredevil versus Muse, round 2. The fight is vicious, but Muse refuses to stay down. As Matt is beating him up, Heather grabs a gun and empties the clips on Muse. Heather faints from blood loss, and Matt speaks to her to keep her from slipping deeper, whispering, I'm here, Heather. The task force arrives. Muse is dead. Muse's final masterpiece? Himself, gunned down on his own canvas, a twisted self-portrait of madness. Heather is alive but unconscious. Fisk is briefed, but spins the narrative. He tells Sergeant North that the officers saved the day. But reporter B.B. Urich reports the real story. An eyewitness saw Daredevil jump through the window to save Heather, until Daniel corners her. He practically threatens her into silence, telling her to take it down and run the official version and stop writing against the mayor's campaign. Fisk then goes on live TV, taking credit for Muse's takedown and using the moment to further vilify vigilantes. Heather wakes up at the hospital with Matt by her bedside. She's gonna be fine, but she is severely traumatized for killing someone and the whole incident, but says she heard Daredevil call her name. Men. She's 2 seconds from discovering his identity. And as for Vanessa, she decides to take Luca up on his earlier offer. She sends him Fisk's dinner location, seemingly setting up her own husband. But when Luca arrives, he's shot in the head by Buck, who was hiding in the shadows. Thought she was going to betray her husband for a minute. Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye, is yanked out of isolation and thrown into general population, leaving Dex to fend for himself against a swarm of hostile inmates. Mayor Fisk is all smiles, celebrating the booming progress of his Red Hook revitalization project. He praises Vanessa, not only for holding things down while he was gone, but for decisively handling the Luca problem. The king and queen of crime are perfectly in sync once again, and that's never good news for New York. Over at Matt's apartment, Heather is struggling to process the trauma of Muse's attack and the fact that she killed him. Her comparison of Daredevil to Muse doesn't sit right with Matt, especially when she accuses them both of being underdeveloped boys hiding behind masks. He argues that Daredevil saved her, but Heather asserts she saved herself. Girl, please. The conversation is interrupted by a knock at the door. Fisk's right-hand man, Buck Cashman, delivering an invitation to the mayor's inaugural black and white ball. Matt warns Heather not to go, branding Fisk as pure evil, but she doesn't seem convinced. She invites Matt to be her date, but he leaves without committing. Fisk takes Vanessa to his private lair. There, she discovers her ex-lover Adam, alive and held captive. Fisk tells her he's a better man now, but he just couldn't let this go. At least he didn't kill Adam like she asked. He shows her the key, offering her the chance to free him. As Adam pleads for his life, Vanessa appears to consider it, before shooting Adam point blank. It's twisted, it's cold, and it confirms the Fisks are back on the same blood-soaked page. Talk about dysfunctional couple. Matt returns to his office, where Kirsten McDuffie informs him that Poindexter has requested a meeting, unexpected, to say the least. Matt asks who moved Poindexter to Gen Pop and, unsurprisingly, learns it was Mayor Fisk. Fisk celebrates the early success of his anti-vigilante task force. Crime is reportedly down 30%, though the ACLU has filed 13 lawsuits for excessive force. He rewards Daniel Blake for silencing reporter B.B. Urich, and shocks Sheila by promoting him to deputy mayor for communications. Sheila Rivera thinks Daniel is in over his head. Matt and Kirsten meet with a potential client accused of defrauding teachers. Matt senses the man is lying and loses it, storming out. Disillusioned, he admits to Kirsten that all their recent work has been futile. We're not serving justice here. We're babysitting chaos. Matt heads to Josie's bar for the first time since Foggy's death. There, Cherry joins him, and they go over past events. Matt insists they must have missed something. Josie returns with a bottle of O'Melvany's, the drink Foggy would celebrate wins with, as the bar is closing down due to lack of money. Josie wants them to finish the remaining bottle in Foggy's honor, but something clicks in Matt's mind. Foggy wasn't drinking that last time. Josie insists she remembers her patrons. That's when it hits Matt. Foggy was celebrating an impending win in the Dumb Benny case, right before Bullseye killed him. Matt rushes to confront Dex in prison. Murdock and Poindexter finally face each other for the first time since the premiere. Matt demands to know who hired Dex to kill Foggy, but Dex deflects. Done with the games, Matt suspects Wilson Fisk. Dex stays non-committal and says he'll talk only if Matt gets him out of prison. Enraged, Matt slams Dex's face into the table 3 times. Dex, bloodied but smiling, thanks him before guards drag him away. Cut to the black and white ball. Sheila tries to advise Daniel, but his ego is completely unchecked now. He checks in with BB, who reminds him they're still not on good terms. Jack Duquesne and Artemis Sledge are both in attendance, though Sledge seems particularly spooked. Heather tries calling Matt again. No luck. Fisk and Vanessa make their grand entrance. Dex's broken tooth becomes a weapon. He spits it into a guard's eye, uses scissors to incapacitate both guard and doctor, and escapes. Bullseye is on the loose. Matt arrives at the ball and heads straight for Fisk, but bumps into Heather first. He admits he visited Poindexter. She's not thrilled, and tries to apologize for his erratic behavior. But he gets distracted when he overhears Fisk's closed-door conversation with Jack Duquesne. Fisk attempts to extort Jack into donating to the Port Project by threatening to expose his swordsman past. Jack shrugs it off and manages to walk out unscathed. Seems they came to an agreement. Fisk about to blackmail his way through New York. A reporter snaps a photo of Fisk leaving the meeting, but is caught by Officer Powell, who takes extreme measures to rough him up. Commissioner Gallo tries to intervene, but the crooked cops now answer only to Fisk. However, one reporter seems to be slipping under the radar, B.B. Urich. While Daniel brags, B.B. pulls Commissioner Gallo aside and asks if Fisk consulted him before forming the task force. Gallo hesitates. B.B.'s last article was pro-Fisk, but finally admits that the task force was entirely Fisk's idea. B.B. reveals she knows Fisk was the prime suspect in her uncle's murder, and hints that not everything she writes is signed with her name. Gallo agrees to send her files on every crooked cop on the task force. B.B. hands him her card before heading back to the charade. Matt, putting the final pieces together, realizes the Fisks are Heather's clients. He tells Heather Fisk got close to her to get to him, but she doesn't want to hear it. Matt suggests they confront him right there at the party. As they head toward him, Vanessa spots them and reaches Fisk first. The couple begins their first dance. Matt tells Heather that Wilson is a monster and, tired of running, pulls her onto the floor for a dance of their own. Buck then gets a phone call. Poindexter has escaped. we see that he's already infiltrated the ball, sniper style. Buck alerts Fisk and Vanessa. Vanessa's clearly more rattled than Fisk. She starts to confess something, but Fisk, knowing Matt can hear with his super hearing, whispers, "Not here." But Matt can hear something else too, her racing heartbeat. That's when it hits him. Vanessa ordered the hit on Foggy. While Fisk was in prison, she was calling the shots. Matt cuts in on the Fisk's dance, whirling Vanessa away and accusing her of hiring Bullseye. She denies it repeatedly and counters with, "Does Heather know Matt is Daredevil?" She tells him to relax. But then, Matt hears a gun being loaded. As Bullseye shoots, Matt dives, taking the bullet for the Kingpin. Panic erupts as the devil lies bleeding on the ballroom floor. Should have let him die, Catholic boy. A year ago, Vanessa Fisk paid Benjamin Poindexter a visit and made him an offer, freedom in exchange for a hit. His target? A man and his lawyer, Foggy Nelson. The case they were working on could shine an unwanted spotlight on her business dealings, and she wasn't about to let that happen. In the present, Matt Murdock is being treated for his gunshot wound. He finally regains consciousness with Heather and Kirsten by his side, but the first name he calls is Karen, which doesn't sit well with his current girlfriend Heather. As Matt comes to, he tells Kirsten that Vanessa ordered the hit on Foggy. The two lawyers try to recall which of Foggy's old cases could have put a target on him, but Heather shuts down the conversation, defending the Fisks and telling Matt to rest. Matt tries to convince her he's telling the truth, but it's no use. Fisk tells Vanessa that he knows she ordered the hit on Foggy. Now that they're back on the same page, he wants to be there to protect her. He unveils his plan to funnel billions through the Newport project. He claims he ran for mayor to save the city, but opportunities fell in his lap? Bull. Kingpin is livid. He declares an all-out war on vigilantes. No body cams, no warrants, no due process. Kill them on sight. He unleashes his anti-vigilante task force and seals off the city. Sheila and Gallo try to talk sense into him, pointing out that an attempt on his life doesn't justify shutting down New York. But Kingpin doesn't care. He orders Buck to head to the hospital to take care of the good lawyer once and for all. Bro, he just saved your life. Fisk privately meets with Sheila and tells her loyalty is everything. She's to report anyone disloyal, and anyone who doesn't toe the line, send them home. Outside, she runs into Gallo, who urges her to stand against Fisk and join him in petitioning the governor and Supreme Court. She agrees, reluctantly. At the hospital, Matt senses danger and slips away moments before Buck arrives to kill him. He makes it back to his apartment, but he's not alone. Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, is waiting. After a few pleasantries, Frank says he got a call to protect Matt. He's curious why Matt took a bullet for Fisk, but Matt has no good answer. Instead, he suits up. Soon after, Fisk's task force raids Matt's apartment, but they're in for a surprise. Daredevil and Punisher tear through them. Matt brings the skill, Frank brings the bullets. It's a bloodbath. In the chaos, Frank finds a bullet marked with his symbol, the same kind used to kill Hector Ayala. They realize the killer is Sergeant Cole North. Daredevil is tempted to end him, with Punisher urging him to. Frank kills another officer taunting Matt, triggering an argument between them. But then Matt hears a grenade pin. He grabs Frank, uses his grapple baton, and they dive out just before the apartment explodes. They land hard, and a car pulls up. Karen Page steps out and tells them to get in. Later, Karen helps Matt with his wound, while Frank stitches himself up. She reveals she called Frank for help the moment she heard Bullseye escape from prison, and hopped on a plane. Matt tells her Vanessa ordered the hit on Foggy. Frank declines to join Matt and Karen as they go dig into Foggy's files, but Karen knows he cares, despite his tough front. Kingpin tightens his grip. He capitalizes on Bullseye's attack and the blackout to give his task force free rein. They're brutal. One officer shoots a surrendering kid, then puts a mask on the body to make him look like a vigilante. Karen and Matt discover that the port of Red Hook is a free port, meaning it's exempt from city and federal laws. Matt connects the dots. Vanessa has been using it to store illegal art and launder money legally. With Kingpin planning to build a compound there, he could scale that operation massively. Foggy was onto something. He just didn't know how big. Frank storms the docks and takes down corrupt officers, until he's overpowered. They admire him, even offer him a spot on their twisted team. He calls them clowns and rejects their hypocrisy. Fisk listens to a recording of Sheila and Gallo's conversation. Turns out Sheila betrayed Gallo. Gallo is captured when he enters his car and finds one of Fisk's anti-vigilante goons in the driver's seat. He's brought before Fisk. "You never stopped being Kingpin," he tells him. Fisk responds by literally crushing his skull with his bare hands. At the docks, a wounded Matt wants to go in, but Karen stops him. She reminds him what happened at Josie's and begs him to be smart. Matt agrees and begins forming a plan. They need allies to take the city back. Fisk, meanwhile, is assembling the most corrupt cabinet imaginable. Daniel and Buck meet with members of the city council. They oppose Fisk's Safer Streets initiative, but Daniel threatens to expose their secrets if they don't play ball. Matt warned Heather Glenn that Fisk was dangerous, but she didn't listen. Fisk offers her the role of Commissioner of Mental Health. She accepts, saying it would be her honor. She's gonna learn the hard way, or is she working undercover or something? Fisk declares martial law. On live TV, he lies again, claiming the commissioner abandoned the city. A curfew is announced. Vigilantes are officially outlawed. "I love New York," he says, while walking past his caged enemies, including Swordsman, Jack Duquesne, and the Punisher. At Josie's, Matt gives a passionate speech to a growing resistance. Cherry, Detective Angela Kim, Josie, and others stand with him. "I can't see my city, but I can feel it. The system isn't working, it's rotten, corrupt. But this is our city, not his. And we can take it back together, the weak, the strong, all of us." One last surprise. Frank Castle uses his popularity to manipulate a cop, then he breaks the cop's hand. The Punisher is still in play. What did you think about the season? I'm not even sure how I feel about it yet, but it definitely sets the show up for a wild season 2. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think.